47 Harley-Davidsons, one wedding dress, zero mercy. That's what my sister found when she pulled up in her white limousine, 200 guests trailing behind her like a parade of expensive expectations. The door to my Victorian home swung open, and instead of rose petals and string quartets, she got leather jackets and Metallica. A man covered in tattoos stepped onto the porch, beer in hand, waving a piece of paper. "Sorry, sweetheart. This is our house now. Got the deed right here." Victoria's $15,000 gown hit the mud before the screaming started. Mom fainted somewhere between the third police car and the realization that her favorite daughter had just lost everything. And me? I was 3,000 miles away in Hawaii, sipping a margarita, watching the chaos unfold through text messages. I'm Holly Henderson. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of how I sold my house to buy back my self-respect. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me take you back to where it all began. 8 years. That's how long I saved every spare dollar, skipped vacations, drove a car with a suspicious rattle, and ate more ramen than any adult should admit to. 8 years of watching my bank account crawl toward a number that felt impossible. The house found me on a Tuesday afternoon, a 1920s Victorian in Portland, Oregon, with original hardwood floors, a wraparound porch, and enough character to make my interior designer heart skip several beats. The listing price was $850,000. The previous owners had let it fall into disrepair. Most people saw a money pit. I saw potential. I closed on it 2 years ago, right after my divorce finalized. My ex-husband, Bradley, got the apartment, the newer car, and apparently my ability to trust anyone for a while. The divorce lawyers took what was left. I walked away with my clothes, my professional reputation, and a savings account I'd hidden from him since year 2 of our marriage. Call it intuition. Call it self-preservation. That house became my therapy. I learned to refinish hardwood floors from YouTube tutorials, crying over grout lines at 2 in the morning when the loneliness hit hardest. I ripped out dated wallpaper with my bare hands. I redesigned the kitchen 3 times until it was perfect. Every inch of that house has my fingerprints on it, literally. By the time I finished, the property value had climbed to $1.2 million. Not because the market was kind, but because I'd poured my soul into every square foot. I'm an interior designer. That house wasn't just my home, it was my portfolio, my business card, the reason high-end clients started calling. But to my family, it was just that big empty house where Holly lives alone. Let me tell you about my sister Victoria. Growing up, she was the sun in our family's solar system. I was just background radiation, present, technically necessary, but nobody really noticed when I wasn't there. Victoria got the bigger bedroom. Victoria got the new clothes while I wore her hand-me-downs. Victoria got Mom's undivided attention at every school play, every graduation, every milestone. I got, "We'll look at your photos later, honey," and a pat on the head. When I graduated top of my class in design school, Mom spent the entire ceremony texting Victoria about her latest boyfriend drama. When Victoria dropped out of community college to find herself, Mom called it brave. The pattern was always the same. Victoria's failures were circumstances. My failures were character flaws. When my marriage fell apart, Mom's first words were, "Well, you probably weren't attentive enough. You know how you get with your work." When Victoria divorced her first husband, a guy who cheated on her with her best friend, Mom said, "You deserve so much better, sweetheart. He never appreciated you." Same situation, different daughters, wildly different responses. Victoria became an event planner, which was ironic considering what was about to happen. She was good at spending other people's money and making things look perfect on the surface. Sound familiar? What nobody knew, what I only found out later, was that Victoria was drowning in $40,000 of credit card debt. The designer clothes, the fancy dinners, the Instagram perfect life, all smoke and mirrors. When she announced her engagement to Derek Mitchell, a businessman from a wealthy family, I understood immediately. This wasn't love. This was a rescue mission, and she needed the wedding to be absolutely flawless. That's when she started looking at my house. The phone call came on a Wednesday evening. I was elbow deep in paint samples for a client's living room when Victoria's name lit up my screen. She never called unless she needed something. I should have let it go to voicemail. "Holly, how are you? It's been so long since we talked." Her voice was honey sweet. That should have been my first warning. "I'm good, Victoria. What's up?" "I have the most amazing idea. You know how Derek and I are planning the wedding? Well, we've been looking at venues and they're all so expensive, like $30,000 expensive." I made a non-committal sound and kept sorting paint chips. And then I thought, your house. It's so beautiful, so vintage, so perfect for a romantic garden wedding. The backyard is huge. The porch would be gorgeous for photos. I set down the samples. "Victoria, I don't think it would save us so much money. And it's just one day. You could stay at a nice hotel, make a little vacation out of it. Derek's family would be so impressed." "My homeowner's insurance doesn't cover large events, and the garden isn't finished yet. I have client meetings scheduled that week." "Holly," her voice shifted just slightly, "I thought you'd be happy to help your sister. This is my wedding, the most important day of my life. I understand that, but this is my home. I'm not comfortable with 200 people." "Fine." The word came out clipped, cold. "I get it. You don't want to help. That's fine. I understand." She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone, waiting for the guilt to hit. It didn't. I'd said no. That should have been the end of it. But Victoria never heard the word no the way normal people did. 3 weeks of silence. No calls. No texts. No passive-aggressive comments in the family group chat. Victoria had never gone this long without demanding my attention for something. I should have known better than to feel relieved. The invitation arrived on a Saturday morning, tucked between a utility bill and a furniture catalog. Cream-colored envelope, gold calligraphy, the works. I almost smiled at how beautiful it was, until I read the venue address. My address. I read it 3 times, certain I was hallucinating. "Victoria Marie Henderson and Derek James Mitchell request the pleasure of your company at 847 Maple Grove Lane, Portland, Oregon." My house. My address. Printed on 200 wedding invitations. My hands were shaking when I called her. "Victoria, what is this?" I said no. "Oh, Holly." She sounded almost bored. "I knew you'd change your mind. You always do." "I didn't change my mind. You sent invitations to my house without my permission." "The invitations went out last week. The caterer's booked. The florist is confirmed. The photographer has the address. I can't exactly unsend 200 envelopes." "That's not my problem. You should have asked me first." "I did ask. You were being difficult, so I made the decision for both of us." She paused. "Unless you want me to lose $15,000 in deposits? Is that what you want? To ruin my wedding because you're being selfish?" I couldn't speak. The audacity of it, the absolute certainty that she could just take what she wanted, left me breathless. "Derek's calling. We'll talk later about the setup schedule. Love you." The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, holding an invitation to a wedding that would apparently happen in my own home, whether I agreed or not. And then my mother called. "Holly, I hear you're causing problems." No hello, no how are you, just straight to the accusation. "Mom, Victoria sent wedding invitations with my address without asking me. I already told her no. She told me you were being difficult about this. Honestly, Holly, I don't understand you sometimes." I pressed my fingers against my temple. "What's there to understand? It's my house." I said no. She ignored me. "Your sister is under so much stress. Do you have any idea how hard it is to plan a wedding? And Derek's family has certain expectations. This needs to be perfect." "Then she should have booked an actual venue." Mom's sigh came through the phone like a physical weight. "You're single. You don't have children. What do you need that big house for anyway? It's just sitting there empty." There it was, the familiar sting of being reduced to my relationship status. It's not empty, Mom. I live there, I work there, I built my business there. One weekend, Holly. That's all anyone is asking. You can stay at a nice hotel. Victoria already said she'd pay for it. She didn't ask me, she told me. Because she knew you'd say no. You've always been like this. So stubborn, so unwilling to help family. I closed my eyes. 20 years of this. 30 years. My entire life spent being the difficult one, the selfish one, the one who never did enough. Mom, I'm not discussing this anymore. My answer is no. Victoria already told everyone the wedding is at your house. Aunt Margaret, the Hendersons, Derek's parents, everyone. If you back out now, we'll all look like fools. The trap had already closed. I just hadn't realized it yet. I'll think about it, I heard myself say. Mom's voice brightened immediately. I knew you'd come around. That night, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet except for the old radiator clicking and the distant sound of rain against the windows. I'd restored that radiator myself, spent 3 weekends getting it to work properly. The windows were original 1920s glass, slightly wavy, catching the streetlight in ways that modern windows never could. I looked around at everything I'd built, the kitchen where I'd cried over cabinet hardware, the floors I'd sanded on my hands and knees, the walls I'd painted 4 times before getting the color right. This house had saved me. When Bradley left, when the lawyers took everything, when I had nothing but my skills and my stubbornness, this house gave me something to pour myself into. Every nail I hammered was a statement. I am still here. I can still create. I am not broken. And now my family wanted to take it, not borrow it. Take it. Because in their minds, it was never really mine. It was just something Holly had that Victoria needed. I thought about every time I'd stepped aside, every birthday where Victoria's needs came first, every holiday where I drove 6 hours to be ignored, every phone call where Mom asked about Victoria before remembering to ask about me. I'd spent 34 years being the one who gave in, the one who kept the peace, the one who sacrificed. And what had it gotten me? An invitation to my own home that I hadn't been consulted about. A mother who thought my life was less valuable because I didn't have a husband. A sister who genuinely believed she could take whatever she wanted from me. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Rachel Kim's number. My lawyer. My friend. The only person who'd never asked me to be smaller than I was. Rachel, I need to ask you something. How fast can someone sell a house? Rachel called back the next morning with an answer I hadn't expected. I found a buyer, cash offer, they can close in 2 weeks. I nearly dropped my coffee. 2 weeks? That's before the wedding. That's the point, isn't it? Rachel's voice was careful, neutral. Holly, are you sure about this? This is a big decision. Who's the buyer? A pause. His name is Marcus Rodriguez. He goes by Tank. He's the president of a motorcycle club called the Iron Wolves. They're looking for a new clubhouse. Your property has everything they need. Big garage, large yard, plenty of parking. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A biker gang wants to buy my Victorian house? Motorcycle club. And yes, they're offering 1.1 million, cash, no contingencies. They've already been pre-approved. Marcus has a legitimate business, custom motorcycle restoration. The club is more of a brotherhood than anything criminal. I checked. I should have said no. I should have thought about it longer, but something about the absurdity of it felt exactly right. Set up a meeting. Marcus Rodriguez was not what I expected. He was 6'4", covered in tattoos, with a beard that could house small animals. He also had a firm handshake, a surprisingly gentle voice, and a lawyer who reviewed every document with meticulous care. Nice place, he said, looking around my kitchen. You do all this yourself? Every inch. He nodded, something like respect crossing his face. Why sell, if you don't mind me asking? I told him. Not everything, but enough. The sister, the wedding, The assumption that my home was just something to be borrowed without permission. Marcus listened. Then he started laughing, a deep, rumbling sound that shook his shoulders. Lady, I like you, and I think I have an idea that'll make this even more interesting. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And drop a comment below. Have you ever had a family member who just assumed they could take whatever they wanted from you? I want to hear your stories. Now, back to what happened next. Because this is where things get really interesting. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in acting normal. Victoria texted me daily with suggestions for my own house. Remove personal items from the living room. Repaint the guest bathroom. The color was too bold for wedding photos. Cut the grass to exactly 2 inches. Pressure wash the driveway. I responded to each message with a simple thumbs up emoji. Meanwhile, I was packing my life into boxes. Rachel handled the paperwork with surgical precision. Marcus and his crew were remarkably organized. They had their own attorney, their own inspector, their own timeline. Everything moved faster than I thought possible. You're really doing this, Rachel said one evening, watching me wrap my grandmother's china in newspaper. You're actually selling your house to a motorcycle club to spite your sister. I'm not spiting anyone, I'm making a business decision. She raised an eyebrow. Holly. Okay, fine. Maybe there's a little spite involved. I taped a box shut. But mostly I'm just tired. Tired of being the one who always gives in. Tired of my boundaries meaning nothing. They wanted my house so badly. Now they can see exactly what it's worth. Victoria posted in the family group chat that weekend. Holly finally agreed. Thank you to my amazing sister for letting us use her beautiful home. Can't wait for the big day. I didn't correct her. I just reacted with a heart emoji. Mom called to say she was proud of me for doing the right thing. I said thank you and changed the subject. My furniture went into storage. My clothes went into suitcases. My most precious belongings, the photo albums, the design awards, the few things Bradley hadn't managed to taint, went to Rachel's apartment for safekeeping. By the end of week 1, my house looked exactly the same from the outside. Inside, it was already empty. 5 days before the wedding, I signed my name for the last time. The closing took place in a small conference room downtown. Rachel sat beside me, her presence steady and reassuring. Marcus was across the table with his own lawyer, a surprisingly buttoned-up woman named Sandra who looked like she'd seen everything twice. You understand this is final, Sandra said, sliding the last document toward me. Once you sign, the property transfers immediately. No cooling off period. No takebacks. I understand. The pen felt heavier than it should have. 8 years of saving. 2 years of sweat. 1 signature to let it all go. I signed. Marcus signed. Rachel notarized. And just like that, 847 Maple Grove Lane belonged to the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out 2 things, a set of keys and a folded leather jacket with a patch on the back. These are for your new place downtown. Rachel helped me find it. Nice little condo, good neighborhood, already furnished. He pushed the jacket toward me. And this is for you, honorary member. You ever need anything, you call. I ran my fingers over the Iron Wolves patch, a wolf howling at a crescent moon. Thank you, Marcus. Thank me after Saturday, he grinned. We're planning a little housewarming party, gonna break in the new clubhouse properly. 47 guys, 50 motorcycles, and a whole lot of beer. On Saturday? Starting around noon, right when we officially take possession. His eyes twinkled. Shame about any other events that might have been planned, but hey, we bought the place fair and square. I felt something unfamiliar rising in my chest. It took me a moment to recognize it. Freedom. Marcus, I said, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Victoria wanted to meet for the key handoff. She chose a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, though she probably thought of it as a victory lap. I arrived 10 minutes early, the old house key in my pocket. Marcus had already changed the locks, of course. This key opened nothing but air. Victoria swept in wearing designer sunglasses and an attitude that suggested she was doing me a favor by showing up. "There you are." She didn't sit, just extended her hand. "The key?" I placed it in her palm. "Here you go." She examined it like she was checking for defects. "Finally, I knew you'd come around eventually. You always do." Mom appeared behind her, beaming. "See? Family helps family. That's what we do." I smiled. It was easier than I expected. "Of course, Mom. Family is everything." Victoria was already typing on her phone. "I'm posting this right now. Venue secured. Can't wait for the big day. My followers are going to lose their minds when they see the photos." "I'm sure they will." She looked up, perhaps sensing something off in my tone. But whatever suspicion flickered across her face disappeared quickly. She was too excited, too certain of her victory to question it. "We'll start setup Friday afternoon. The caterers arrive at 10 on Saturday. Make sure you're out by Thursday night at the latest." "I'll be gone before you know it." Victoria tucked the key into her purse with a satisfied click. "See? That wasn't so hard. I don't know why you had to make such a fuss about it." I watched them leave, Mom patting Victoria's arm, both of them already talking about centerpieces and seating charts. That night, I booked a one-way ticket to Honolulu. Departure time, 6 a.m. Saturday morning, the exact same day as Victoria's wedding. Friday night, I slept in my new condo for the first time. It was smaller than the Victorian, modern, clean lines, neutral colors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Nothing like the home I'd built with my own hands. But when I woke up Saturday morning, I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed at 5 a.m. A text from Marcus. "Crews moving in tonight. Electricity gets transferred to our name at midnight. Water too. Everything's ready." I typed back, "Have fun with your housewarming." His response was a single emoji. At the airport, I bought a mimosa at the lounge and watched the sunrise through the terminal windows. Somewhere across town, Victoria was probably getting her hair done. Mom was probably fussing over her dress. The caterers were probably loading their trucks. None of them knew what was waiting for them. My phone buzzed again. Derek this time. "Hey, Holly. Thanks for helping Victoria with the venue. I know she can be a lot, but it means everything to her. And to me." I stared at the message for a long moment. Derek wasn't a bad person. Oblivious, maybe. Complicit in Victoria's entitlement, definitely. But not malicious. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I turned off my phone as the boarding announcement crackled overhead. Flight 847 to Honolulu, now boarding all passengers. I gathered my carry-on and walked toward the gate. Behind me, Portland was waking up to what would become the most talked-about wedding disaster in the city's recent memory. Ahead of me, white sand, blue water, and the kind of peace I'd been chasing my entire life. The plane lifted off at exactly 8 a.m. Victoria's wedding was scheduled to begin at 2 p.m. I ordered another mimosa and closed my eyes. The limousine was white. The dress was white. Victoria's face was about to turn white too, but for a very different reason. I learned what happened next from multiple sources. Rachel, who heard it from Marcus, the viral videos that flooded social media within hours, and eventually, from family members who couldn't stop talking about it for months. The wedding convoy arrived at 847 Maple Grove Lane at exactly 1:30 p.m. 200 guests had already gathered along the street, dressed in their finest, clutching programs printed with my former address. The photographer was positioned at the corner, ready to capture Victoria's grand entrance. The videographer had his drone in the air. Victoria stepped out of the limousine like a queen arriving at her coronation. $15,000 of silk and lace cascaded behind her. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair was perfect. She was, by all accounts, radiantly beautiful. Then she looked at the house. The front gate was closed. No white ribbons, no flower arrangements, no welcome signs. And parked across the lawn, gleaming in the afternoon sun, were 47 Harley-Davidson motorcycles. "What the hell?" Victoria's voice carried across the crowd. Mom pushed through the guests, her navy dress swishing. "There must be some mistake. Holly said she'd have everything ready." The front door opened. A man emerged, 6'4", tattoos covering both arms, a beard that hadn't seen a razor in months. He was holding a can of beer in one hand and what looked like a legal document in the other. Behind him, rock music pulsed from inside the house. Lynyrd Skynyrd, if the witnesses were to be believed. The man surveyed the crowd of wedding guests with an expression of mild amusement. "Can I help you folks?" 200 people stood in stunned silence. The photographer kept shooting. The drone kept filming. And Victoria's perfect day began to crumble. Victoria recovered first. She marched toward the porch, wedding dress dragging through the grass, fury radiating from every pore. "Who are you? Where is my sister? This is her house." Marcus, Tank, took a leisurely sip of his beer. "Was her house. Past tense." "What are you talking about? I have a key." Victoria fumbled in her clutch, producing the key I'd given her. She held it up like a talisman. "See, this is my sister's house, and she gave me permission to use it for my wedding." "That key doesn't work anymore. Changed the locks last week." Marcus reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded document. "This is the deed. Signed, notarized, and recorded with the county 5 days ago. I'm the legal owner of this property." Victoria snatched the paper from his hand. Her eyes scanned the document, the signatures, the dates, the official stamps. The color drained from her face. No, this isn't possible. Holly wouldn't." "Wouldn't what? Sell her own house?" Marcus chuckled. "Lady, she absolutely would. And she did. Fair price, clean transaction, everything above board." Mom appeared at Victoria's elbow, her face a mask of confusion. "There's been a mistake. My daughter Holly owns this house. She agreed to let us use it." "Your daughter Holly sold this house to me and my club." Marcus gestured at the motorcycles, the leather-clad men now gathering on the porch behind him. "We're having a housewarming party, private event, and you folks are trespassing on private property." The crowd began to murmur. Phones emerged from pockets and purses. Someone was already filming. Victoria's hands were shaking, crinkling the deed. "She can't do this. She can't just— This is my wedding." "Your wedding," Marcus said calmly, "is not my problem." What happened next became the stuff of Portland legend. Victoria screamed. Not words, just a raw, primal sound of rage and disbelief that echoed off the neighboring houses. She threw the deed at Marcus, who caught it calmly and tucked it back into his pocket. "This is illegal. This is theft. You can't just steal someone's wedding venue." "Can't steal what I legally purchased." Marcus remained infuriatingly calm. "Got the paperwork, got the keys, got 47 witnesses who watched me sign the deed. What do you got?" Mom tried to push past him toward the front door. "My daughter's belongings are in there. Her furniture, her—" "Empty." Marcus didn't budge. "She moved out last week, took everything that was hers. This house came to us furnished with our own stuff now. Nothing of Holly's left inside." Victoria spun toward the crowd, mascara already starting to run. "Someone call the police! Call them right now!" Several guests were already on their phones, but not calling for help. They were recording, streaming, posting. Derek stood frozen by the limousine, his face the color of old paper. His parents, elegant, wealthy, watching their son's fiancée have a public meltdown, exchanged a look that said everything. "Victoria!" Derek's voice was barely audible. "Victoria, calm down." "Calm down? Calm down?" She whirled on him. "My sister just sold our wedding venue to a biker gang. How am I supposed to calm down?" One of the Iron Wolves, a massive man with a gray beard, leaned toward Marcus. "Hey, boss, should we turn down the music? Seems like these folks are having a moment." Marcus considered it. "Nah, it's our house. We can play whatever we want." Lynyrd Skynyrd continued to blast from inside. Victoria sat down on the lawn, her $15,000 dress pooling in the mud, and she started to sob. The police arrived in 12 minutes. 2 squad cars, 4 officers, responding to multiple 911 calls about a home invasion and property theft. They approached the scene with hands near their weapons, clearly expecting something very different from what they found. Officer Chen, a young woman with a no-nonsense expression, took point. "What seems to be the problem here?" Everyone started talking at once. Victoria, still on the ground, shrieked about stolen property. Mom demanded arrests. Derek's father started citing laws he clearly didn't understand. The wedding guests formed a chorus of outraged murmuring. Marcus simply handed over his documents. Officer Chen reviewed them carefully. The deed, the bill of sale, the notarized transfer of ownership, the recording confirmation from the county clerk's office. She checked the dates, the signatures, the official seals. Then she looked at Victoria. "Ma'am, these documents appear to be in order. This property was legally sold 5 days ago. Mr. Rodriguez is the current owner." "That's impossible!" Victoria struggled to her feet, mud streaking her dress. "My sister owned this house. She couldn't have sold it without telling us." "Actually, she could. It was her property to sell." Officer Chen's voice was patient but firm. "There's no legal requirement to notify family members of a real estate transaction." "But my wedding is not a legal matter, ma'am. You're currently on private property without the owner's permission. Mr. Rodriguez would be within his rights to have you removed." Marcus held up a hand. "No need for that, officer. They can leave peacefully. We don't want any trouble." Victoria's face contorted. "I'm not leaving. This is my wedding day. I have 200 guests." "Ma'am." Officer Chen's patience was visibly thinning. "If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to arrest you for trespassing." The crowd gasped. The cameras kept rolling. "Can we just take a moment here?" Victoria is standing in the mud in her $15,000 wedding dress, being told by police that she's trespassing at her own wedding venue. 200 guests are watching. Everyone is filming. This is the moment we've been waiting for. If you're still here, drop a fire emoji in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next with Derek, you won't believe it. Derek had been silent through all of it. He stood by the limousine, watching his fiancée scream at police officers, watching her mother threaten lawsuits, watching 200 of their closest friends and family witness the most spectacular wedding disaster any of them had ever seen. His parents stood beside him. His mother's lips were pressed into a thin line. His father kept checking his watch, as if calculating how quickly they could escape. When Victoria finally stopped screaming long enough to look for him, Derek was already walking toward her. "Derek!" Relief flooded her voice. "Thank God. Call your lawyer. Call anyone. We have to fix this." "Victoria." His voice was quiet, controlled. "Stop." "What do you mean stop? We need to—" I said stop." He held up a hand. "I've been standing here for 20 minutes watching you, listening to you, and I've been thinking." Something in his tone made Victoria pause. "Thinking about what?" "About how you got this venue. About how you told me your sister was thrilled to host our wedding. About how you said she insisted on it." Derek's jaw tightened. "You lied to me, Victoria. You lied, and you stole from your own sister, and now you're standing here screaming at everyone like you're the victim." "I am the victim. Holly did this to me." "Holly sold her own house. That's not a crime. What you did, taking her home without permission, sending invitations without her consent, that's something else entirely." Victoria's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Derek turned to his parents. "Mom, Dad, I think we should go." "Derek, wait." Victoria grabbed his arm. He looked down at her hand, then back at her face. "I don't think I want to marry someone who treats family like this. I'm sorry, Victoria, but I'm done." He walked away. His parents followed. I was on my second Mai Tai when my phone finally came back on. The Hawaii sun was warm on my shoulders. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, turquoise and perfect. I'd been offline for almost 8 hours, the longest I'd gone without checking my phone in years. The notifications nearly crashed my screen. 47 text messages, 23 missed calls, 15 voicemails, and a family group chat that had exploded with over 200 messages. I scrolled through them slowly, sipping my drink. Victoria. Holly. What did you do? Victoria. Call me right now. Victoria. You ruined my life. Mom. Holly, call your sister immediately. There's been some kind of mistake. Mom. Holly, this isn't funny. Mom. Holly, you are no longer welcome in this family. I let that one sit for a moment. Then I started typing. I sold my house 5 days ago. I told Victoria no from the beginning. She didn't listen. This is the consequence of not respecting someone's boundaries. Victoria responded instantly. You destroyed my wedding. No. You destroyed your wedding when you decided to use someone else's property without permission. I simply made a business decision about my own asset. Mom. How could you do this to your sister? To your family? Mom, you told me my house didn't matter because I'm single. You told me to go to a hotel. You made it very clear that my life is less important than Victoria's party. I disagreed. The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, Victoria. I will never forgive you. I looked out at the ocean. The waves were gentle, rhythmic, peaceful. That's your choice. But I'd do it again. Enjoy the rest of your day. I turned off my phone, ordered another drink, and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold. By the time I landed back in Portland 3 days later, the internet had done what the internet does best. It remembered. The videos were everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Every platform had multiple angles of Victoria's meltdown. Someone had edited together a supercut with dramatic music. Someone else had added subtitles and commentary. A local news station had picked up the story. Bridezilla's dream wedding crashes when sister sells house to motorcycle club. The comments were brutal and almost universally on my side. The sister is a legend. This is the revenge we all dream about. Imagine being so entitled you send wedding invitations to someone else's house without asking. The mom saying, "You're single, what do you need a house for?" is the most toxic thing I've ever heard. Iron Wolves MC are the real heroes here. They didn't even get mad, just showed the receipts. Marcus had become a minor celebrity. Someone had captured him calmly explaining the situation to the police, deed in hand, completely unruffled, while Victoria screamed in the background. The clip had 2 million views. Someone made a meme. When the biker gang has better manners than the bride. He texted me a photo of himself holding a sign that said, "Deed or no deal," with a laughing emoji. More surprising were the messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, old classmates, former colleagues. "Holly, I saw what happened. I always knew Victoria was like that. I'm proud of you." "Your mom said that to you? About being single? That's so messed up. You did the right thing. I'm coming to Portland next month. Let me buy you a drink. You're my hero." Victoria's Instagram went private. Her event planning website went offline. The internet had delivered its verdict, and it wasn't in her favor. Let me do the math, because the numbers tell their own story. Victoria's losses were catastrophic. The venue deposit she'd supposedly paid? $15,000? Except she'd never actually paid it because she was planning to use my house for free. That money had gone toward her dress instead. The dress itself, $15,000, now ruined beyond repair. Mud stains, grass stains, and apparently some beer that splashed during her confrontation with Marcus. Non-refundable. The catering? $8,000. They'd prepared food for 200 people that had nowhere to go. They showed up, saw the chaos, and left. Contract fulfilled on their end. No refund. Flowers, music, photography, another $5,000 combined. Most of them had already been paid in full. The photographer, to his credit, got incredible footage, just not the kind Victoria wanted. And then there was the credit card debt she'd been hiding. $40,000, accumulated over years of living beyond her means. Derek's family money was supposed to make that disappear. Now Derek was gone, and the debt remained. Total damage, over $80,000 in losses and liabilities. Victoria moved back in with Mom. She couldn't afford her apartment anymore. Her event planning business, the one built on creating perfect moments for other people, collapsed within weeks. Clients canceled. Referrals dried up. Nobody wanted to hire the woman from the viral wedding disaster video. Derek, I heard later, got engaged to someone else within 6 months. A quiet woman from a good family who probably never raised her voice at a police officer. Victoria's carefully constructed life had imploded in a single afternoon. And all because she couldn't accept a simple 2-letter word. No. It's a complete sentence. She should have learned that earlier. Mom called me 1 week after the wedding. That wasn't. I almost didn't answer. But something, curiosity maybe, or the last remnants of hope, made me pick up. Holly. Her voice was tired, older than I remembered. We need to talk. Okay. What you did to your sister. What I did was sell my own property. That's legal. What Victoria did was use my address without permission and lie to everyone about it. That's the part you should be upset about. Silence stretched between us. I waited. Victoria is devastated. She won't come out of her room. She lost Derek, her business, everything. I'm sorry she's hurting, but I'm not sorry for what I did. How can you say that? She's your sister. And I'm her sister too, Mom. But that never seemed to matter much, did it? I heard her sharp intake of breath. That's not fair. Isn't it? You told me to go to a hotel because I'm single. You said my house was just sitting there empty. You didn't ask how I felt about any of it. You just assumed I'd sacrifice whatever Victoria needed, like I always have. I didn't mean. You did mean it. That's the problem. You've always meant it. I kept my voice steady, even as my heart pounded. I spent 34 years being the daughter who didn't matter. The one who gave in. The one who kept the peace. And what did it get me? An invitation to my own home that nobody consulted me about. Mom was quiet for a long time. I didn't know you felt that way. You never asked. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I, Mom. But I know I can't keep being the one who sacrifices everything. My new condo was half the size of the Victorian. It had none of the character, none of the history, none of the original 1920s details I'd fallen in love with. The walls were plain white. The floors were engineered hardwood. The windows were efficient and modern and completely ordinary. I loved it. For the first time in my life, I had a space that was entirely mine. Not because I'd fought for it, not because I'd rebuilt it from ruins, but simply because I'd chosen it. No ghosts of my marriage, no memories of family obligations, just clean lines and city views and the quiet hum of a life I was finally designing on my own terms. The money from the house sale sat in my investment account, $1.1 million minus the cost of the condo. Enough to never worry again, enough to take risks, enough to say no to clients I didn't like, and yes to projects that excited me. My business, ironically, had never been better. The viral videos had brought attention I'd never sought, and some of that attention came from people who admired what I'd done. New clients reached out. Design magazines wanted interviews. A podcast asked me to discuss setting boundaries in family relationships. Rachel and I started having weekly brunch. Marcus invited me to the clubhouse for their monthly barbecue. I went, wearing my honorary Iron Wolves jacket, and discovered that 47 bikers could be surprisingly good company. You know, Marcus said, flipping burgers on my old back porch, we kept your kitchen design, best kitchen in Portland. I looked around at what had been my home, now filled with leather and chrome and laughter. It looks good on you, I said, and I meant it. Victoria reached out 1 month later. The text was simple. Can we talk? Please. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. Public space. Neutral territory. Easy exit if things went wrong. She looked different when she walked in. Smaller, somehow. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple sweater and jeans. No makeup, no perfectly styled hair. Just Victoria, stripped of all her armor. "Thank you for coming." She sat across from me, hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't ordered yet. "I didn't know if you would." "I almost didn't." She nodded, accepting that. "I've had a lot of time to think. About what happened. About what I did." She took a shaky breath. "I was wrong, Holly. I was so wrong." "Yes, you were. I told myself you'd be fine with it, that you'd come around. That's what you always did." Her eyes met mine. "I never stopped to think about what that cost you." I let the silence sit between us. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Victoria continued. "I know I don't deserve that. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. What I did. How I treated you. How I've always treated you. What do you want from me, Victoria? A chance. Not to go back to how things were. I know that's not possible. But maybe to build something different. Something where I actually treat you like a sister instead of a resource." I considered her words carefully. The old Holly would have rushed to reassure her, would have smoothed things over, would have sacrificed her own boundaries to make Victoria comfortable. I wasn't that Holly anymore. "We can try," I said finally. "But things will be different. I won't lend you money. I won't give you things without being asked. And I won't sacrifice my boundaries for your convenience, ever again." Victoria nodded slowly. "That's fair. It's not negotiable." "I understand." The conversation with Mom was harder. I drove to her house on a Sunday afternoon, the same house I'd grown up in, the same driveway where Victoria's car always got the better spot. Some things never changed, but I was trying to change what I could. Mom met me at the door, looking uncertain in a way I'd never seen before. "Holly, come in." We sat in the living room, surrounded by family photos. I noticed for the first time how many of them featured Victoria prominently while I hovered at the edges. "I've been thinking," Mom started, "about what you said on the phone, about feeling like you didn't matter. And? And I don't understand it." She shook her head. "I love both my daughters equally. I always have." "Mom, you told me to give up my house because I'm single. You said it was just sitting there empty. You didn't ask how I felt. You didn't consider that maybe my life has value even without a husband or children." "I didn't mean it that way. But that's how it landed. That's how it's always landed." I kept my voice calm, even though my chest was tight. Every time Victoria needed something, I was expected to provide it. Every time I needed something, I was told to figure it out myself. That's not equal, Mom. That's not even close." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick. "I didn't realize. I thought I was being fair." "You weren't. But you can be, going forward. If you choose to." "How?" "By asking me what I need instead of assuming. By treating my boundaries as valid. By seeing me as a whole person, not just Victoria's backup." Mom's eyes glistened. "I want to try." "Then try. But I won't wait around to see if you succeed. I have my own life now." The Iron Wolves threw their first official clubhouse party on a warm Saturday in June. I was the only non-member invited. Marcus insisted. "You sold us this place," he said, pressing a cold beer into my hand. "You're family now. Different kind of family, but family." I looked around at the backyard I'd once landscaped myself, now filled with motorcycles and lawn chairs and men in leather vests laughing over a massive grill. The Victorian house rose behind them, its elegant bones now decorated with Iron Wolves banners and string lights. It should have felt strange. It didn't. "To Holly!" Marcus raised his beer. "The woman who sold us a house and bought herself freedom." 47 voices echoed the toast. Rachel was there too, having somehow charmed her way into the party with her quick wit and complete lack of intimidation. She stood next to me, watching the celebration with an amused smile. You know, she said, when you called me about selling your house to a biker gang, I thought you'd lost your mind. And now? Now I think it's the sanest thing you've ever done. I laughed, and it felt real. Light. Unburdened. Later that evening, one of the club members, a quiet guy named Eddie who did custom paint jobs, approached me with a proposal. Marcus says you're a designer. We're thinking about redoing the meeting room. You interested? I looked at the house that used to be mine, at the people who now called it home, at the strange and unexpected family I'd accidentally acquired. Yeah, I said. I'm interested. Rachel nudged me. See? You didn't lose a house. You gained a client list. I smiled. I gained a lot more than that. The party went on until midnight. I stayed for all of it. 6 months later, I barely recognized my own life. I was standing in my condo, morning coffee in hand, looking out at the Portland skyline. The space was still small, still modern, still nothing like the Victorian I'd poured my heart into. But it was mine in a way that house had never quite been. The Victorian had been my recovery project. This place was my fresh start. My business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. The viral video had brought attention, but my work had earned the reputation. I'd just signed a contract to design the interiors for a boutique hotel downtown, the biggest project of my career. Victoria and I texted occasionally. Polite messages, surface-level updates. We'd had coffee twice since our first meeting, and both times had been awkward but civil. She was working as an administrative assistant now, rebuilding slowly. We weren't close. I wasn't sure we ever would be. But we weren't enemies either. Mom and I were trying. She called once a week instead of only when she needed something. She asked about my work. She didn't mention Victoria's needs in every conversation. Small steps, uncertain progress, but progress nonetheless. Last week, she'd sent me a photograph. An old family portrait I'd never seen before, from when Victoria and I were kids. In this one, I was in the center, laughing at something off camera, while Victoria stood slightly to the side. No message, just the photo. I understood what she was trying to say. Derek got engaged to someone else. I saw the announcement on social media. Victoria didn't mention it, and I didn't bring it up. Some doors close forever. That's not always a tragedy. Sometimes it's just the end of one story and the beginning of another. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. They expect me to hesitate, to show some flicker of guilt, to admit that maybe I went too far, that selling my house to a motorcycle club was petty or extreme or unnecessarily cruel. I don't regret it, not for a single second. Here's what I've learned. Some people will never respect your boundaries until those boundaries have consequences. You can say no 1,000 times, and they'll keep pushing, keep assuming, keep taking, because your no has never cost them anything. My no finally had a price tag. $1.1 million to be exact. Victoria didn't lose her wedding because I was cruel. She lost it because she made a decision without my consent and assumed I would fall in line. That's not my cruelty, that's her consequence. Mom didn't lose her relationship with me because I was vindictive. She's rebuilding it now because she finally had to see me as a person with needs and limits, not just the daughter who always gave in. I didn't sell my house for revenge. I sold it for respect. There's a difference. And if you're watching this, thinking about your own family, your own boundaries, your own patterns of sacrifice, I want you to know something. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect what you've built. You are allowed to stop being the person who always gives in. Your boundaries are not selfish. Your boundaries are self-respect. And you deserve both. It took me 34 years to learn that lesson. I hope it doesn't take you as long. But whenever you learn it, today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, it will be worth it, I promise. I'm writing this from a coffee shop downtown, laptop open, working on plans for the hotel project. My phone buzzes, a text from Marcus, with a photo attached. The iron wolves gathered around the barbecue in what used to be my backyard. Someone's holding up a sign that says, "Wish you were here, Holly." I smile and type back, "Next time." Outside the window, life moves on. Couples arguing on street corners, families negotiating whose needs come first. People learning, over and over, where their limits are and what happens when those limits get crossed. A young woman at the next table is on the phone, her voice strained. I know it's your wedding, but I can't just take off work for a whole week. I have responsibilities too. I want to tap her on the shoulder. I want to tell her that it's okay to say no, that her sister's wedding is not more important than her own life, that she doesn't have to sacrifice everything to keep the peace. But that's a lesson everyone has to learn for themselves. I turn back to my laptop, back to my work, back to the life I built from the wreckage of the one I used to have. My phone buzzes again. Rachel. Brunch Sunday? Me. Absolutely. The coffee is good. The sun is warm through the window. The hotel designs are coming together beautifully. I sold a house and bought my freedom. Best trade I ever made. So that's my story. I sold my house to a biker gang the night before my sister's wedding. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it necessary? Absolutely. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with family? What happened? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and the notification bell. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong. And remember, your boundaries are not negotiable.